another Tuesday, another episode of The Boyd. I can't believe another Tuesday has flown by. Hold on, Alright, hopefully this is all coming through. Let me know if there's anything strange happening with audio, etc., etc. Please. Alright, and I was trying to get my peeps from the previous one of the previous shows on. We had a little group call going on, but I don't know how to. It doesn't seem like I'm able to get that thing to work on Facebook. You know, there's like some kind of new Facebook or something. I mean, I guess a lot of people probably knew that before me. I don't really mess with my Facebook too much. I mean, other than maybe to promote the show, stuff like that. All right. As you can see, we are not in the shop studios again. You know, it's hot and humid, and I just had a car in there pretty recently. And so it's not, I mean, there's like a smell of exhaust. I don't know. I just moved it out, so it's all hot and gross. So it's less hot and gross in this room. I guess it's definitely not as much going on, but whatever. As per usual, Seprock Beats on the beats. Today we are having a show called Seeds in the Snow, Part 2. So Seeds in the Snow last time was, I was just talking about, really what I'm talking about now is Seeds in the Snow was sort of a way that I felt like an image I felt like when if I was going to try to think of a metaphor of what the future is like, what's that going to be like? And it's hard to, obviously I don't know. And that's what I sort of want to have the show about, is to see what folks are thinking. What are your views on the future? I have a pretty, I guess a lot of people think it's bleak, but some people agree with what I'm saying, and feel like it's coming as well, that there's some bad things happening. Alright, so I'm going to try to get some folks back on and see if we got some folks. Let's see who we got. We got one person connected with us live on YouTube. What's up? So 1 out of the billions. You are very unique. Right, there you go. If you needed to feel unique in this world where we're all locked in, unable to show our special uniqueness sometimes. People have been doing it through video and stuff. But, that's the crazy thing is, the challenge of this show, even reaching the audience, and not even just trying to reach the audience because to have a broad audience, but to be able to expand the conversation. Really, it's what it's about. Expanding the conversation. Because, I could just be yelling out into a cave and, or at a wall or whatever. And what's the point of that? You know what I mean? What is the point of that? So I'm trying to, let's see, I'm going to get some of these folks. I don't know if it worked. I don't think it let me call them. If it did let me call, error occurred. Okay. I have to, alright, so working on some technical difficulties. Here we go. Every time. Facebook goes through a update, and now I gotta go and reconfigure the mean, it was Murphy's Law, Hofstadter's Law, one of these crazy laws that aren't really laws. Okay, so let's see now that I've messed with this, if we can call some folks. And see. So if you have something in the by the way, in the live chat, go ahead and dump your thoughts down. It's not that I'm having a bleak look at the future because of just, I don't know, because I'm trying to be negative or anything. It's that I think that there's a lot of signs that are moving towards that. And I don't know. Let's see what you guys think. And we'll see if anyone joins the show. They may jump off. I don't know. You guys may hear them ringing in the background. Let's let it ring for a moment and see what happens. Hey, what's up? This is James. It is Tuesday night and the Boyd is on, so we're talking about the future. If you'd like to join the conversation, please stay on and join the conversation.
Alright. I do have to leave at midnight, though, because I have work.
Well, I'm shooting for about an hour this time. That's really how long the show's supposed to go. It wasn't supposed to go that long. But it was an experimental show. It was the first time that I had folks coming, on the show, I guess via Messenger or other means, etc. Yeah. So, anyway, it was sort of like a grand experiment.
Yeah.
So, thank you. And by the way, if you would like to, please, I just know you by your screen name, but, and also your, we joined, so we're joined together via Messenger, so I don't want to divulge too much, etc. So if you could introduce yourself to the degree you would like, please.
My name is Sophie. I go by Knight, though, because that's my stage name. I'm a musician, and I've started doing debates and conversations with other people to broaden my knowledge on different things. So.
Oh, cool. So have you been in any debates lately?
Yes.
What was the last big debate topic, I guess?
Whether communism is a achievable goal or not.
So what side did you take?
I don't exactly believe it's an achievable goal. So.
Gotcha. Well, when you say communism, what is that? How would you define communism?
The absence of a government or state and any type of currency, and where the workers own the means of production.
Oh, yeah. Well, at least you're going along pretty much like the Marxist utopian sort of. Look, here's the thing. I think in some, Star Trek space utopia, that there is like this shift in spiritual consciousness or something. But unless that kind of thing happens, yeah, for sure, no. Though I think there is a way. Now, this is, of course, somewhat crazy talk, somewhat visionary. I don't know. I guess people can say, and it's not even my idea, but I think I'm a supporter of it. But basically, changing the paradigm from this sort of the system that we have now, where we basically allow for the rental of people, to a system where we partner with people. And that if you are working in a long-term enterprise with an owner or somebody, that eventually the part of the stuff that you created in the enterprise with your tenure would therefore equate to some level of equity or ownership therein. And I also believe the bigger the organization, the more democratic control of the workplace there should be, since there's like there's more people on the line. So like imagine someone has a stupid, like a bad day and throws a temper tantrum and sells half the company or something, and like it to vulture capitalists, and
Yeah.
then like the vulture capitalists run it in the ground, and now 8,000 employees on a small company, 8,000 employees now have no means to survive, and they had no say in that decision. Um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Yes.
I think there's a paradigm shift that's possible. And here's the thing: I think people don't think about the larger ramification of that paradigm shift. 'Cause so imagine if you had equity, like after 10 years of working someplace, which is not. I mean, that's pretty. That used to be pretty common, if not common now. You work. Let's say you worked there 10 years, and you had 10 years worth of equity, whatever that meant, depending on the enterprise, etc. And you could sell that back to the enterprise or sell it to the open market and have this capital infusion. Imagine what you could do. I don't know how much money it would be. Let's just pretend. What if after 10 years it's like 50 G's or something?
Yeah.
You'd be able to start your whatever thing, enterprise of your own you wanted to start. Or go travel the world, or get your time back, or go volunteer,
Yeah.
or whatever you intrinsically want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that whole whatever we're talking about?
Um, on the first part or where?
Either way, whatever, however you want to pick up, because I'm interested in your take. I mean, I know you said that you don't believe in that sort of Marxist communist utopia, but
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't believe that it's achievable. The I kind of like how it would be, but I don't think that we can get to the point mainly because you have to literally change the whole system basically, and it's run so it's just I don't think people are
Going to what?
going to shift into that
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I wonder that about that. I hear that a lot, and I think part of the problem is we only have a few people that are really articulating how that can even be done. But then
Yeah.
also, we um, we've lived through so much so much pro-capitalist and I guess either obfuscation of or outright anti or misinformation about anti-communist, anti-socialist, um, to the point where it's like we're not speaking the same language. When you talk about
Yeah.
socialism and the ownership of the means of production and democratic control of workforce, those things are completely not even part of the conversation a lot of times when we're talking about it because the
Yeah.
whatever it is,
And most
yeah,
people also aren't as educated on what communism actually is because the way they're teaching it now, when you think of communism, you think of the USSR and the murders of like millions of people.
sure, right, as opposed to the sort of raw form of, yeah, like, I mean, and that's the thing too is, and it's interesting. I guess I'm running into more folks who think it so far, at least what I can gauge, who think in the way that you do, because and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I think there's still an uphill battle to explain, like the fact that I can critique capitalism while not necessarily believing that we can move into a stateless, classless society that
Yeah.
just shares stuff because I know my brother needs it or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but
And
we
the way
could.
that
It
the
could happen.
society
It could.
sorry.
Well,
Sorry.
what I was gonna say, just real quick, and I think my broader point about the equity, or let's back up for a second. I worked 10 years, 20 years at a place. Instead of selling it, maybe my enterprise has a very high profit margin, high income potential, and I decide to retain the shares and have income, like dividend income. So maybe I have like, I don't know, $3,000 a month dividend income after 20 years.
Yeah.
What could you do with that time that you now have because you don't have to pay rent or something because it's already basically taken care of by the enterprise that you helped be part of for 2 decades of your life, right? In return, I mean the thing that really sparked my this idea of how it could change things is there was a what's it called, a article about a veteran who made free canes for injured veterans out of discarded Christmas trees. And because he's retired and supported by his military pension and whatever else, he has all this time. And what does he do with his time? He does
Hmm.
what he intrinsically wants to do, which is make these canes for veterans, and he makes them for free,
Yeah.
and he just does it all day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So could if everybody was somehow able to reach that point, is it possible that we could have such a paradigm shift that people are almost doing that? You know what I mean? I mean, it would take
Yeah.
a super huge cultural thing. But think one thing to know on and real quick is there was a time when chattel slavery was the norm, and
Yeah.
then that paradigm broke, and then moved on. All right, go ahead. So I'm sorry.
So what I was going to say before was that the way society has like basically raised people, or at least around here, it's a very kind of almost like a greedy type of
Mm,
mindset. And like if it was in going to shift into that,
yeah.
I don't know how long it would survive, or if
Mm.
people would exactly learn the change of lifestyle.
You don't think a culture would set in, a different kind of culture, maybe a less greedy type culture or something, possibly?
Well, not exactly, because the way like culture is based off of how the family raises the children and then they grow up with that mindset that they were taught when they were young. And it
Well,
kind of continues and continues and continues, and
sure.
I
But
don't know how
you don't think that
exactly what
changes
it would
though?
take to break that.
Sure, I think to a large degree you're right, but I think there's evidence that shows that the children of the one generation to another, especially when there's some level of if there's an immigration or some other major change, like for instance if someone's immigrating from one country to another and you have first generation to second generation, now you have a potential, depending on the family and a lot of factors, you have the potential for massive cultural shift from one generation to another. Or how many white people were race are even still racist, boomers for instance, or previous generation are at their core racist because they were raised that way. They have these weird prejudices
Yeah.
that are already ingrained super deep, that even if they say outwardly with words and actions and deeds that they don't feel a certain way, they may in their heart of hearts feel a certain way. You know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
a cultural taboo to feel that way. And I've been around people like that, so I know it exists. I'm not saying all white people are that way, but there's
Yeah.
also children of those people who are not racist at all.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And sometimes maybe they catch their parents or their uncle or somebody being racist, and you're like, whoa, what the hell? What's going on? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and that's true, but like I don't know. It doesn't seem reasonable for it to be able to happen, because like even though not all white people are racist in the different generations, it changes. From the people that I've talked to and been around, they aren't racist themselves, but it kind of takes years and years to actually realize when they go out into the world to see, okay, what's going on? That's not right. And now that they see that's not right, well, I still have this feeling inside of me because I was taught that this is wrong, but I know this isn't wrong.
Like, can you give an example of that?
Like,
Like a hypothetical example or whatever.
let's just say, like, walking into a black neighborhood, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I have seen people, I've had even my teachers, say to me, like, when you're walking down that street, like, don't go too far away from your car, always lock your car, keep the windows rolled up, hold your purse,
Sure. So
and
take extra precautions in this area
yeah,
or whatever.
when it's really not necessary. But when they're already taught that, their first instinct would to be then to hold their purse against them.
I see.
But
Yes.
they don't
Right.
know why
Yes.
this is happening, or they don't even believe that they should be doing this, but they don't even realize it.
Sure. Absolutely. Um, well, yeah, and that a lot of times, yeah, because it comes from some conditioning as kids and stuff. But there's also I guess that's the good reason a good reason why a lot of times kids have a rebellious phase, because maybe
Yeah.
at that time they get a chance to break away from cultural norms of their parents, and sometimes they circle back and boomerang back to that and use
Yeah.
that as a guide stone for how to craft their adult life, which I think that is an issue in of itself. But because it's so taboo to even talk about these things, we don't talk about them, and because we don't have that level of fellowship with each other, and we are social creatures, we I think don't recognize these sort of deficiencies. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To be able to reflect in myself, like, hey, did I like when my father was abusive, or my mother was abusive, or whatever
Yeah.
happened? Did I like that? And if not, am I perpetuating that in my raising of my child?
Yeah.
Those questions. I think those are very those introspective questions like that are heavy, and people don't
Yeah.
want to carry that kind of weight unless they really have to. So unless it hits a breaking point, or they hit quote unquote rock bottom, then they just sort of like, At least that's my opinion about it.
Yeah.
And they just, let's say la vie. I just will have a shitty relationship with my XYZ part of my family, or all of them, forever, and then you know So I mean, I don't know. It like, but you're right, because one of my favorite mantras I like to say is, especially in regards to racism. When people claim institutional racism doesn't exist, or there is no racism anymore, like we've moved past that and da da da, then I always have to ask, do they believe, those people who say this, do they believe rules and laws change hearts and minds? A lot of these people are super pro Second Amendment or whatever. Like, if
Yeah.
some super lefty Dem got in and was like, "Oh no, no more guns," and then they totally pull the plug on the Second Amendment, are they suddenly going to be like, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, veil taken off the eyes. I am totally, no way. Second Amendment is stupid." Hell
Yeah.
no. They're going to be all crotchety about it. Go ahead. What were you
Yeah, and
talking
they're
about?
gonna try and get it back.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
when there's this, desegregation, integration, doobie doo, whatever. I mean, you just name the thing. They're gonna be like, no, we don't. I don't want this. I don't know. I mean, I don't care what I have to say to make sure my donors don't get in trouble or hate me. I'm still gonna write legislation that screws all these people that I hate and I've always hated. Or because, I don't know, there was a black guy that punched me in the face once, or I don't know. Everybody's got some story. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
and that goes for everybody. It's just that there is an element to the story that we have to remember, that in a country that had such massive power dynamic asymmetry. It's just something that we have to consider. Is all. I think it's just a big chunk of our society doesn't want to consider that. They just sort of want to like say, oh yeah, well the law changed, so society was like, fine, everything's cool. What's wrong?
Yeah.
But you're right. It doesn't necessarily change. Hence, racism still exists now, even though we supposedly had the whole, Martin Luther King and everybody fighting for civil rights, and even had a reminder in the '90s with Rodney King. I don't know. So, what are your thoughts on the future?
Future as in politically, socially?
I guess they're all sort of intertwined in the large part. To some degree, I mean, politics have sort of gone off the rails, and I mean, I feel like I could probably walk down the street and throw a rock randomly and find somebody better than Trump or Biden to be president. Like, they would probably be more coherent. So it's just weird. Something's weird. It's like just they are, I don't know what. It is almost like they want to spit in our eye and show us that there it really is, like they are dangling puppets in front of it, like dead corpse puppets, like meat puppets in front of us.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, what do you think about that? You're saying yeah, so I guess it sounds like you agree that we have meat puppets dangling and we get to choose one of them.
Basically, yeah, because you know what? I don't even know. It's like you don't want to vote for either of them, but it's like, in my opinion, I will literally choose anything than Trump right now, how I'm feeling. But then I'm looking at Biden and I'm just like, but, no.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean,
And
I
then,
think this is the time. If not, I mean, I thought last time was maybe the right time for the third party move, but there was too much Hillary stuff going on, and I mean, there was still a lot of anti-Trump. But at this point, we've had 4 years of Trump. Everyone's still alive. There's no nuclear war yet.
Besides from the pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic stuff, absolutely right. And so so there's less support for Trump, but even then, it's like, what was I gonna say? But there's not like Biden came to the rescue. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh wow, yeah, Biden, he's like Mighty Mouse. Let's make him president. He came and punched the coronavirus in the jaw. Like that. So it's like. I think it almost feels like if there's any time, it's now or next election. I mean, there may be this fizzle of fuck it. Okay, one more time. This is last time. If otherwise, we are gonna get Che Guevara-esque person to just burn the shit. I almost feel like it's getting to that point. If it didn't already get, if it doesn't happen before the election, it's gonna get like that after the election.
Yeah.
Because shit's going to fall apart. If Biden wins, that guy's a moron. And there's no leadership. There's psychopaths that are running the meat puppet arms. And like the marionette master is a psychopath or a sociopath. I mean, I don't want to lump too many psychopaths in. Because there's pro-social psychopaths that try their hardest to just like no one even knows they're psychopaths. Right? And then there's these people that are like the CEO of Nestle, or like basically everybody in our government, that all of them, I mean, not all, but there's pretty much, they're almost all sociopaths, or they work for sociopaths, or they're basically just puppets. Yeah, I don't even know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. When it comes to this, it's just like, it's a stuck position, and there's no way around it.
Have you thought about running for something?
Like,
For office?
No.
Why not?
It's really not my thing.
Uh, well,
I Next year I'm joining military. That's the farthest I will go with that.
oh, joining the military.
Yes.
What branch?
Um, Marines, I think, or Air
Marines.
Force.
I would
Choosing.
definitely recommend Air Force. As an Air Force
Or
brat and
yeah,
having lived
Air Force
around.
so I can get the degree, but probably after I get my degree, contract over, go to Marines because that's always been my thing. I just always wanted to go to the Marines.
Hmm. Well, I mean, there's a lot of. Yeah. I don't know all the ins and outs. I'm sure there's some branch of the Air Force that has some kind of overlap to what you wanted to do or want to do in the Marines. But whatever works best. You can jump over. I mean, yeah, why not commission and then jump over to another service.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult. It's not easy, but you know it's in my family, and I'm honestly ready for it. So
Yeah, but I would totally say go Air Force first of all of them because the bases are. I mean, they just put more money in the Air Force point
yeah,
blank.
yeah,
So the base amenities, any kind of anything is like practically all better. Second
yeah,
is Navy. They dump tons of money in the Navy bases, but then you might get stuck on a boat or something. At least in the Air Force, at least you hop in the plane from one place to another, and then like
yeah. I don't think
or
either
you're
of
on
them
a
is a good
base.
option when you really think about it.
What? What was that?
When you really think about it, like either getting stuck in the middle of the ocean or getting stuck like 50,000 feet above.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why there's all those safety precautions
Yeah,
and then you have an ejector seat, and there is of course all of that if you're even a pilot or even if you're doing any of that, which is actually a minority of Air Force. Most of it is support and other type stuff. So like
yeah,
you'd probably end up on a base doing
yeah.
communications or whatever. I mean, it depends on what your interests are.
Well,
You could be
I was going to
building.
be a
Hey, get.
medic for the Air
You
Force.
want to be a medic?
For the Air Force, yes, but for
Ah,
the Marines, I want um still choosing which one, but I'm gonna be actually engaging non-medic in the Marines.
I see. Well, I mean, there's a need for. I mean, they have base hospitals. You could end up in anywhere in the world in the Air Force base at a hospital.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Or you could be forward deployed if you wanted to be. So there's all sorts of stuff that you could do in the Air Force. But I mean, not to poo poo the Marines. The Marines are great. I'm just saying even
yeah,
Marines would admit all of those things that I just said. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
that the Marine people are like, yeah, so what? I don't care. I don't care if you have like running water and like roads with asphalt and like malls on your base and your commissary is constantly stocked and it's like beautiful.
yeah.
I mean they'll say they. I mean yeah, and it sounds like I'm ragging on them, and they will all pretty much agree. They will
Yeah.
all call the Air Force pansies and blah blah sometimes too. But then everybody gets to dunk on the Coast Guard. So at the end of the day, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
I guess. Not, but anyway, but that's pretty cool. Joining the armed service. I think it's interesting though. There's a phenomenon I've run into that's sort of interesting about the armed services, and it is the anti-government fervor and the anti-socialist, anti-collectivist sort of ethos, which is so ironic. I think you
Yeah.
know. And speaking of generations moving away from them, like I always say that I fell from my father's tree as far as the apple is concerned. But yeah, that's true. I fell from the tree, but the tree was on a hill and rolled the fuck out because when I grew up, my dad got mad if I had black friends, and he was like saying racist shit all the
Yeah.
time, and I wasn't allowed to listen to rap, or if I did, it was like I would get in trouble sort of and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
I definitely am not like that. And the other thing is he's a staunch, supposedly staunch capitalist, staunch, but he never really spent any time in the capitalist workforce. He's always lived as part of the government experiment, the collectivist, taxpayer-funded experiment of the military. And I find that it's so prevalent, this sort of libertarian philosophy in within the midst of a collectivist experiment. What are your thoughts on that?
That one I don't exactly have much knowledge on it to comment on it.
Yeah, they're out there. I've got a lot of current military, including Marines. In fact, there's one Marine guy I pick on. He thinks I don't know if he thinks I'm picking on him or what, but anytime he sort of virtue signals some kind of thing, especially anti-socialist, anti-collectivist, pro-capitalist, that kind of stuff. Anytime he spreads that around, I always point out that his survival in this world depends on a collectivist, taxpayer-funded government project. You know.
Yeah.
And he, always, oh yeah, you always got to remind me of that. But I have to remind him why, because he constantly is pushing pushing out this libertarian slash super uber capitalist message all the time, this propaganda. Which, of course, everybody's throwing propaganda left and right, literally and figuratively, What kind of propaganda have you seen, or have you noticed anything like that?
Well, back to communism again, definitely seeing
Oh,
about that.
yes, go ahead. Yes, you've seen communist propaganda?
Yeah.
Well, are you part of any like leftist groups, or are you part of right wing groups, or
Well,
any kind of
I
that kind of
kind of,
stuff? As a debate person, you
well,
probably.
I'm kind of, when I debate, I'm the outside party that will see both views and comment questions that kind of like make them really think about what they're supporting.
Mm-hmm. So you don't really have a super. I mean, you don't have necessarily a position that you hold really near and dear. It's more of you trying to find, as in a way, like a sport in a way, find the other way of the other perspective of whatever the prevailing point is, maybe.
Yeah. Plus, I don't really want to first make a opinion that like I'm going to be just on, because there's points in like anything that you go about that are good, and there's going to be points that are bad. Um, I just, and plus people will base you on what you think, especially politically. Um, so I just kind of stay away from it. Well, first for future life, if because I'm a musician, um, and being a very social out there, people knowing what I think politically could, one, mess with my viewers, because some people won't like, well, she believes in she's a Republican, or she believes in communism, or whatever it is. They're just gonna be like, well, I don't want to support that. Um, and I've I've talked to people, like, not in debates, but just seeing them post something. I'll just comment something here, and they'll immediately think that I'm a leftist, and so they'll start going fully off on me, start screaming at me. I'm just like, okay.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I've done that. I'm sure I've done that to people, and people have done that to me a lot. Especially, I'll critique some. I'll do say a critique of Obama or something, or I'll critique
Yes.
something, And people will automatically assume all this right wing stuff, or vice versa, or like someone will be say a lot. There'll be a lot of right wing virtue signaling that I'll jump on, and there's this assumption that I have whatever baggage that they have. You know what I mean? Like as far as what they believe, quote unquote, leftists believe. You know what I mean? Which is whatever their caricature that Hannity or The Blaze or Daily Wire or like blue haired nose ring, non-binary, whatever, like that's their caricature of who the quote unquote left is.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or I don't know, they've have a few of them out there, but there's like this sort of set of whatever, I guess you can only be certain species of left. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you're totally off. I'm way more left than that, or maybe. I mean, I don't know. Sort of by the way I talk about labor and capital relations, technically, per academia, I'm super left wing. Maybe
Yeah.
not per Europe standards, because there's like literal Marxist communists in Europe, but I mean there are here, but nobody's running for office. You know.
Yeah.
But I think in Europe they have literal Marxist communists running.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the idea was just to think about, what's, for the future socially. I guess one of the things I wanted to also really think about is the fact that so many people are unemployed and that there's an eviction moratorium coming up, or that's being lifted, which landlords are just itching to, kick people out. And there's even, I heard in Louisiana, there's cities that are getting stadiums and other things ready, large complexes ready for the mass exodus of people from homes to homelessness, I guess. In the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of, unemployment and all of these other contractions. And of course, we dumped a bunch of money on businesses, whether they're going bankrupt or not, whether they are offshoring or not, whether they laid people off or not. We just dumped a bunch of money on it. So
Yeah.
now we're in for a reckoning, I think. And I think we're spiritually not in a place to help each other out. Like you said, we
Yeah.
have a culture of greed. But do you think something like this pandemic will, and the resulting, I think, and I'm not alone, I think that there's going to be something worse than the Great Depression coming. If we can even imagine that. I think we can prevent the suffering from being as bad, but as far as like a financially bad, I think our technology will help things be better, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be pretty bad. What do you think?
I completely agree with you on that. I honestly don't think this is gonna end well, or how people think that it's just suddenly gonna kind of go away.
Do you think
Um,
people will become more greedy, or do you think people will come together in this stress?
I think it's half and half, quite honestly, because my neighbor's dog is barking at me and that distracted me. Jesus. Um, I think it's gonna be half and
Yeah.
half because some people are still extremely in their views, and there's the other people that are more lenient and seeing what's going on and understanding that like we have to help each other.
Well, but there's a whole group of people who have a philosophy of not really helping each other. That unless it's a family unit or it's just someone who you decide, that that you want to help because they're related, or somehow it's a benefit to you individually. I mean, there are people who basically worship Ayn Rand, for instance, and her. I mean, she wrote a book called The Virtue of Selfishness, and her writing speaks to that end. You know what I mean? And they
Yeah.
exalt her as a philosopher, as sort of this hero, as someone who to model their perspective on the world and human nature upon. So, with that being said, how are we going to navigate? And these people are in our government leadership. Like Rand Paul, and Paul Ryan, and I bet Trump has. I don't know that he read it, but I bet he has some Ayn Rand around him to make him look or feel like he read something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but with a 50-50, do you think if we delineate, somehow really define the line between that 50-50 split between, basically, yeah, I'll help you, or versus fuck you, pay me attitudes, like, do you think could there possibly be like a civil war type thing emerge from that?
Quite honestly, I think it's very likely that that could happen.
Wow. You think it's crazy. More and more people I talk to literally think that there's going to be a civil war of some sort.
Yeah.
How would it start? Who would it even be? Like how would it be defined? By what is it? Would it be the good versus, I mean, would it be the I'll help yous versus the I won't help yous? Or will it be left wing versus right? Or is left and right going to be defined by the selfishness versus cooperative virtues? I mean, could we really have a civil war based on virtues?
I mean, honestly, yes. Because let's take the protests, for example.
Okay.
So people protesting like Black Lives Matter, and then there's people coming in and they start saying like either all lives matter, like you guys don't matter, you guys aren't special, or people saying that blue lives matter, or stuff like that. And then the tension grows between them in those protests, and if there's not many of them, they could say the wrong thing and really piss someone off, and then they just start getting beaten up, and then it all kind of like evolves after that, which I've seen happen.
Do you think that's enough to spark additional fighting in other parts of the United States, or do you think that could just end as an isolated incident?
I think it can definitely erupt into more.
Yeah, I think it could. You know what's interesting? I don't know if you heard. Have you heard of the? Well, I'm not monetized anyway, so I guess I could say whatever I want. Um, there's a Boogaloo movement. I don't know if you've heard of the Boogaloo movement or what Boogaloo is.
I think I've heard of it, never really researched into it.
Yeah, there's something like the I don't know, the militia, usually right wing style militia folks from way back. I mean, this has been going. I remember this has been going around since I was a teenager. I've heard about the concept of the boogaloo, and basically what the boogaloo is when the tyrannical government decides to move in and be tyrannical on us, because usually, according to the folklore, generally it's because of a left wing government, socialist, something like that. I mean, usually it's hyperbole, at least in my opinion. Academically, if you look at it, it's definitely hyperbole.
Mm-hmm.
But in their mind, it's literal. And they believe that on that day when they come to confiscate guns or something like that, on tantamount to that activity, that they will have to, come to the aid of the constitutional, believers in this country or something. You know what I mean? that fantasy, it's right now it's sort of a LARP, mainly LARP lords that are into that. But there are some people that are that are veterans that are generally uber right wing. Could be law enforcement, and other folks that are literally professionally trained.
Mm-hmm.
2006, the FBI released it was then suppressed by the Congress. Department of Homeland Security through the FBI released a document saying white supremacists have been purposely infiltrating law enforcement to learn tactics and also to become leadership within the organization and just to exert their will through law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of stuff exists out there, but they're in the service. They're fighting this tyrannical government. Here, the government is being tyrannical to black people, and they've done nothing about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But now, here's the kicker. In Seattle, just recently, and this was covered by We Are Change, and Ford Fisher covered this. And sometimes I don't know. I mean, they go down a pathway, libertarian-esque pathway, that I don't agree with too much, because I really like to hash some ideas out with them as far as carrying their ideas to a logical conclusion. But that's for another day. But what they realized was that the Boogaloo people were protesting in the same fashion that the Black Lives Matter people were protesting. They were protesting, I'm pretty sure it was a white person, but someone who's a Second Amendment gun supporter who was killed by a no-knock raid, and they used their Second Amendment right to shoot the police, and then they got shot in the firestorm, or what, a firefight, excuse me, in a firefight.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were protesting, holding their name up, and then Black Lives Matter was holding a name up, and they said, "Hey, the police killed both of these people. We both are victims, or we are fighting for victims of a tyrannical government." They both nodded their heads, and they said, yes, they joined forces and protested together against the police.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so there may be something mixed in where there's like a layer cake, to where you're right. Yes, there is definitely the group of people who really are like the QAnon, like deep dive people who are really stuck on the Trump conspiracy, Democrat, Republican. Like, it's just, like, it's not necessarily reality. It's just sort of like Trump the board game, Trump the president the board game edition. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but in reality, I don't know. I mean, and as someone who's going to join the military, what if, like, Trump says he will deploy the military through executive order to Seattle, for instance, to clear the autonomous zone that the protesters put together? Would you be okay with? Would you fire on
Well,
civilians or things like that? Like, what would?
well, first of
Yeah.
all, from what I know, I believe that's the National Guard's job. But
Mm-hmm.
if I was given that order, quite honestly, I don't really care what would happen to my career. I'd find another job because I'd decline the order.
Hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, I don't want to. I mean, there's some things I'd really like to ask you, but I don't want to have you say them out in the open. But that's good. It's interesting that you say that, because I believe that there are other people, a lot of people, in fact, in the military. Now, there might be some super Trump fans or super whoever the next president that they're cultish about, fans that would fire with glee upon people who are, in their mind, ad, ideological adversaries therein.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a great number of people who wouldn't, and who would see, like, hey, I don't agree with this person, but I'm allowed, they're allowed to be here or do something, etc. And Superfan Chris, by the way, is on live chat, and he said he's a former military himself, And he says many military members would decline that order as well. So he agrees
Yeah.
with you there. And so I think even though posse comitatus was supposedly suspended, and they can actually deploy the military, even though not even National Guard, literal military can be used to either aid law enforcement or enact law enforcement, or more that mainly the reason why they did it was so that if you, let's say, now that Trump said Antifa, now they can't really do it, but if they did actually say Antifa literally is a terrorist organization, if I was walking around with a I am Antifa shirt, there is a possibility that I could get detained and possibly disappeared by the military, without going through civilian court of law and or the upholding of my First Amendment right, because now once I have been deemed a national security threat, aka terrorist, now the that suspension allows them to act on U.S. soil against civilians. And it sounds Alex Jonesy, but it's really like there's some little they weaved kernels of truth into Alex Jones on purpose to make it sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it was 2011. Obama actually signed that one, but I don't know if it has to be renewed a bunch of times or whatever. But I'm pretty sure they upheld the suspension of posse comitatus, and they probably would, especially now that things are going to go hit the fan super hardcore in a few months.
Yeah.
So, what do you think's going to happen? Do you think that there's going to be like a surge of jobs, or do you think something's? I mean, if there's like there's going to be a point where even the military's not hiring anymore, and there's not government jobs, and there's not and everyone's scrambling for the same jobs, and the wages are going to drop. What's going to end up happening to the country, do you think?
Well, a complete disaster, in my opinion. Because then with the more people out of jobs, and because quite a lot of people take government jobs.
Sure.
And without all of that, I just think, okay, maybe it could go into a communistic.
Well, yeah, I mean, if everybody's working for the government, then you're getting close to some level of collectivist organization of some sort. I mean, I think it's definitely not going down the Marxian or Marxist sort of communist utopia. I think the one thing we really want to avoid is massive state apparatus attempt at communism.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that for sure, and we don't want that.
Yes.
And that's what gets screwed up in the conversation all the time. Like, for instance, if I was quote unquote debating Ben Shapiro right now, and I was talking about and I was critiquing capitalism, he would assume that I love the government and I want the government to control everything. And yet he doesn't realize my suspicion of the government, especially because it's hijacked by capital. So that it's not because I'm suspicious of the government only, but it's because I know it's been hijacked by capital. Because the way that Ben Shapiro talks about the government is like it's like some beast that lives in the mountaintops.
Yeah.
And it's like that's why I was asking if you're running for something, because it's literally supposed to be us. We should be running for shit. It shouldn't just be some Nancy Pelosi getting the same shit over and over again. Mitch McConnell, how the fuck long has he been in that place? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's we need people, like real people. And here's the thing. Trump has set the bar so low that it's like I mean, anybody. Come on, you could do a better job than Trump. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody can do it. You just
Yeah,
can.
even the way it looks now, even Kanye can do a better job than Trump.
Oh, hey, what's
Now
up? Who's
that,
on? Is this Tabari?
yeah, what's going on?
What is
How y'all
up?
doing?
Welcome to the show,
Yeah,
Tabari.
Hi,
but the
Sophie. How you
only
doing?
hi, I'm good. But the only issue with the whole Kanye thing is that
Oh, Kanye.
he's also like supporting Trump, so or in the same type of path. It's just no. But I
He's
do
like a
have
vote
to
distraction. He's like a vote distraction, basically.
basically yes,
He's
but
going to distract votes
I
away.
do have to go because I have a night shift today.
Ah.
But
Well, thanks so much for joining. Every
all
Tuesday,
right,
9 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to ring this line, and whoever answers
all
and
right.
wants to be on the show gets on the show, and we talk about stuff. And thank you so much for
Yep.
jumping on.
Have a good night, everyone.
Hey, good night, Sophie.
Okay, you too.
Yeah, Tabari. So, what do you think? Yeah, the future. We were talking about, I don't know, all sorts of stuff, but like, mainly, like, what's the future outlook for the country, for the economy, for our society? I think we are in for a reckoning. A lot of people think I'm full of doom and gloom, and I'm not trying to be full of doom and gloom, but I just think with the current, not only just a pandemic, but with the current level of unemployment and stuff, it's just bound to be, who's gonna buy the
Yeah,
shit?
the country right now is divided.
And that
Even with the
too.
election, with the results, even with the results of the election, people can try to have a positive outlook. So Trump will be out of office. It's going to get better, but they're not really understanding the depthness of it because you got to think about what Trump has done since he's been in office. Everything he's rolled back, every treaty he's pulled us out of, all he's done. The next president's going to take a full term to try to correct that, and Biden is not really the one, I think, to put in that position to be able to do anything about that. I think with him as president, I don't really see the country going any worse, but I don't see it really getting any better anytime soon.
Right.
At
I
all.
mean, what specific legislation is Biden gonna push that's gonna be like, oh shit, yeah, life is so much better now that
He's
Biden's
not going to
here.
push anything original. Biden's not going to push anything original. Anything he pushes is going to be basically Obama-ish.
Mm.
I think it's going to be I think it's going to be things that Trump rolled back. He's just going to put back into effect. I think he's going to spend his whole term doing that and basically talking a bigger game that he actually is going to put action behind. It's just going to be a
Well,
lot of words but no action.
right. And we earlier night was on with us, or Sophie was on with us, and we both agreed that we have basically meat puppets in front of us that they're just
Mhm.
dangling these like flesh sacks that
And with
have
the state of the
names.
country, with the state the country is in right now, they're looking for hope. So whatever's out there, they basically
Yeah, but
holding on
look,
to
but like
because
you said though, anybody could do a better job. I mean, I was just
Mhm.
saying I could go out in my neighborhood and I could throw a rock and I could probably hit a house that has somebody that could be a better
but see,
president
but
than
that's the
both
whole thing. That's
Biden
why we need a
and
whole.
Trump.
That's why we need a whole new party.
Yes.
But even with
Yes.
saying that, like you say, anybody can do a better job. That's true. But you know how the media is. They're not going to put anything out there of anybody that can do a better
Right.
job. Unlike like Bernie Sanders, for instance, he's had sold out arenas and everything. Does that get publicized or anything like that? No, because
Right.
he's not somebody they want as a candidate.
Well, of course, yes, right. Yes, so you have the establishment, but there's still a lot of people who
Mhm.
are sleeping on that whole idea that there's
But see, that's
people
why I
in
believe this
control.
time after this election, this is going to be the last of this. I do believe another party is going to come out of this. It's just things are just too crazy right now.
I think so. I think so. Back in 2016, I was thinking, man, maybe third party. It was just too much of a. I mean, too many people were stuck on Hillary, and
Hmm.
thinking like, no, no, everyone's gonna vote Hillary. But now Biden is so poor, is such a poor candidate. Why? Well, why would they put such terrible candidates? it's almost either they're pissing in our face on purpose, or I just don't get it. Why would they do something
The reason why they picked Biden
that
over
bad?
anybody else they
That
could have picked as a
bad.
Democratic, out of anybody else they could have picked for a Democratic candidate. You got to look at Trump. You got to see the type of person Trump is. They needed somebody who was a bigger bully than Trump, someone with the same type of sway as Trump, because Trump won the election to surprise everybody because he appealed to that mass of people who are like
Yeah,
him.
but Bernie's
Biden appeals to
better
that.
at that
Biden
than
kind of appeals to
Biden.
that same demographic, but Biden's for the Democrats. So they looking at him as like, oh, he's the opposite of Trump. When all the same kind of instance, he's kind of similar in a way, but not
Yeah,
quite.
I guess I could
So
sort of
so
see
they look
that.
at it as he's the best answer to what Trump is. What Trump stands for, somebody else who's kind of like him with the mouth, with the way, just his whole persona.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's
I
a
mean, because I would have never thought it either. I really thought it was a joke at first when they chose Biden. I was like, what, Biden? I mean, he was Obama's
yeah, I
vice
think you're
president, but
right though. This is it.
he's not really that guy.
This is
That's
the
like
last
saying
time.
Pence is running for president. That's like saying Pence is going to run for president. No, that's not a good choice.
No, no, no. I think you're right in that a third party is going to come along and somebody. I think it just has to be. It's not even about the party. I almost think that if the right person shows up and really can unify people somehow, some way. I don't know how exactly, but they are be able to articulate the problems. They're able to dance on their toes and deal word for word with people as they say it. They don't need to stick to talking points. They're able to freestyle the interviews and stuff like, you know what I mean, without
Hmm.
doing stupid
And see,
shit or sounding like they
that's
have
what
some
Democrats
kind
got.
of
To me, that's what
dementia.
Democrats got away from. But they try to compete with Trump and the type of message Trump puts out there instead of actually talking about the issues and talking about,
Right.
like stuff like Bernie Sanders talks about. He actually talks about the economy. He actually talks about the issues. He always actually talks about government and stuff like that.
But like you said,
But yeah,
the people in power don't want that. So you'll have to
hmm
find. But do you think those people are losing their power though?
I think so. I think they're dying off too.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, who's the major? What's the major vector now, though? Like, how do people get informed about who's running and what they believe and da da da? Like, where do they even go to get that anymore?
And see, that's to me, that's the problem. Because the information is out there, but it's so much misinformation alongside real information.
Oh
Like
yeah,
what we was talking about last week, what Ocean was saying about information. The information is out there, the actual, but there's so much misinformation in front of it and in between it and around it and behind it. It's kind of hard to figure out what is actual and what is not actual.
right.
Then they said the majority are stupid, the individual is smart. Majority of people aren't gonna look deep into it. They're gonna go with face value and run with that, and boom, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate. I think
Yeah,
part of it.
it is. I mean, when you think about it, it's sad, but you got to think about how Trump won the election the first time. He appealed to that mass.
Right. Well, I guess I don't remember if it was Socrates or I think it was Socrates warned against the perils of democracy. Maybe it was Aristotle. I don't remember. Somebody.
It was Aristotle. It was
There,
Aristotle.
there you go, Aristotle.
Yeah, I read up on Socrates. Yeah, I wrote up
There
on
you
that.
go.
Read up on that.
He's warning us about democracy. Basically, that we will pick a Donald Trump. You know that we will degrade in. I mean, but he had a different different view of humanity though than I mean, I guess Trump to some degree maybe shows it, but I think it's for a big chunk of the population. But a lot of the population didn't vote for Trump and um, didn't vote at all. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
if you look at, I think it was less than 30% of the population actually voted for Trump. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's not like
Cause Hillary Clinton,
massive.
she did win the popular vote.
Right. So she even won the popular vote, and it's like a lot of people sat out this election anyway. I think it was more than 40% of people didn't vote, you know.
I think it's actually gonna be like that this year too.
So
I
yeah,
really
I
do.
mean it might be
I,
like
I
that,
really
and
think it's gonna
Trump.
be. I believe a lot. I believe a lot of people are just gonna sit out.
Yeah, because they feel shitty being. They don't want their hand to. choose Biden.
And the thing is, even with as many people sitting out, this election is going to be more of a mess than any previous election.
Yeah, I mean, it's either going to be third party or an actual revolution, like Che Guevara style. Like someone is going to have a bandolier of
I believe
bullets.
there's no choice but to be something like that coming out of this, because
Wow,
I really
really?
do
No
believe this
choice but
election,
to have that? Do you think?
I really believe this election, if Trump loses, is not going to go well. It's not going to concede well. He's not
Mm,
going to concede well. He's going to throw a fit. It's going to be recounts. Then he's going to blame mail-in ballots. He's going to blame this. It's going to be a bigger mess. And with COVID going on and people doing more mail-in ballots than before, yeah, it's going to be a mess.
wow.
I think people just going to get. I think this time people are just going to get fed up, because I remember when it first happened with Bush with the recounts, people started getting tired, and it's happened again. It's like it gets to a point. It's like we got this going on, we got this going on, we got a president like this. Then now this is happening. Enough is enough. People are already getting riled up. That's why these riots are happening. You know, enough is enough. It's getting to that point.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that there's a ticking time bomb happening. I almost wonder if it's to the point where you might get, if there was enough of a movement and enough of like an articulate divide, like there's a group of people who want us to work together to have a better future for ourselves and our children, literally, and they literally want to put that together, versus basically this individualistic cult of people that are either super crazy Trump people or they are, they're basically greedy sociopaths. Well,
Like
right.
what Trump symbolizes. To me, that's the American way.
Well,
To me, that's what this country was based on. That's how it started with people like
it
that.
is, yes. Okay, so you're right. So I guess really manifest destiny, kill off anybody who's
Hmm.
living on the land already. Plus, we have slaves,
Yeah,
and
I mean, you got to think even with the slave argument, like with Black Lives Matter and everything, how people say they did us this injustice and everything like that. The Constitution said this and that, but you got to think back then when the Constitution was created, all men created equal. Slaves and black people in general isn't included in that, because remember, slaves were classified as property,
right,
so we were never considered people. So therefore, the Constitution never applied to us.
yes, right. But I mean, that's just that is ingrained in the founding of this country, right? So we
Hmm.
have to recognize that as a country, number one, which a
Yeah.
lot of people aren't even trying to even recognize. But oh man, I miss.
Like you said, when you said like a revolution, that's what's
Oh
needed.
yeah, the revolution.
A whole, the whole rework of everything. Everything needs
Yes.
to be reworked. Because we still living off old laws, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, all this old stuff doesn't apply to what's going on now.
Do you think
Everything
that
needs
that the
everything
const?
needs to be redone.
Wow. So do you think that the Constitution needs to be amended or completely
Yes. I think not amended. I think it needs to
removed
be
and
completely reworked.
redone?
I think it needs to be reworked now, completely rewritten to include what this country is truly about right now.
You know,
Inclusions of all races, inclusions of everybody.
right.
Because that
It's
original Constitution was written for one demographic. Let's be
exactly
real.
right. Exactly. In like European countries, they've gone through multiple constitutions.
Exactly.
And
You
and
got to
for
think about
whatever
that.
reason, we only have this one constitution forever. And so I don't know. I think, yeah, I think there definitely is a something to be said about that.
Hmm.
I do, but I wonder though, would it take a revolution, and who's going to write that constitution? Who are these great minds that are going to help us, make sure that
Yeah,
it
that's
is
that's
something
that's the
that'll.
problem. That would be the problem. All leaders would have to find common ground, come together, and write it out.
I mean, that's
But
that's
that would be the problem in itself.
right. That's what's going
But
to
you
be
have
the
some that aren't going to budge. This has been generations for them. This is what they know. This is all they know, and they don't care to know nothing different.
right. There's going to be yeah, there's definite that might be something that would cause that fight. But I wonder how's it going to flesh out? Like how's it what are the team names? You know what I mean? How will you tell someone
Yeah,
apart? How will you know that he's on your side or not? You know?
yeah,
And what would it
that's
even be
true.
about? Would it be if there was a revolution, would it be a small rebellion? Would it be a civil war? Would half of the military defect against the other half of the military?
And see, that right there is what I wonder about, and I it kind of scares me thinking about it sometimes because the way we're going, how people are fed up, it sometimes it makes you think like, damn, is it a possibility there could be a civil war, especially if this election goes a certain way? But if it was something like that, would the military turn each other up? I mean, our military nowadays is composed of so many different backgrounds and cultures.
Right.
So it would seem like it'll be almost near impossible for the military to turn the military against each other.
Oh, you mean to turn the military against the
Yeah,
people?
like yeah. But like you said, it'd probably be something like a civil war military because there's just too many different backgrounds in the military nowadays.
Well,
It's
I
not
mean
just
it.
one particular person
Right.
race.
And if that's the case, if there was even let's say it started with a small rebel army of people, like let's say there was I mean it could start with two people get together
Yeah,
and plan something out, and it doesn't have to be two people, but it works better with two people. And
yeah.
then
But I really think something like a civil war, it wouldn't happen these days because just by looking at everything that happened with George Floyd, all these protests and everything like that, it's too much support. The only real support you really see for the other side is like people like Fox News that alt right, but they're not as seeing what's going on right now. They don't seem as big as they used to be.
yeah,
It
but they
seems
have
like
the
this movement is
military.
bigger.
I mean, they have the president on their side though, and they have a lot
Yeah,
of
that is
the
true. That's
government
true. That's true.
apparatus. So it's a little there's some asymmetry there.
And they do have the police. They have a lot. They do have a lot of
Exactly.
that. So they do have the actual power to try to enforce something like
Right.
that.
So and there's a reason why that I mean that's on purpose and put together on
Hmm.
purpose so that the status quo is always protected,
Hmm.
and they will protect it. You know.
But I mean, you got to think they're in place everywhere. Like when I was talking to Raina the other day, and I was comparing it to like that movie, Captain America, Winter Soldier, or Captain America: Civil War. I said when you look at that, I say it's kind of the same thing. After the Civil War was over, the Emancipation Proclamation, whatever, free slaves and everything, and all of you think all people disappear, all the races disappear, but you notice now you got white supremacists who are in the police department. You have white supremacists as judges in strategic points of
Right.
government and politics all across the world, just like Captain America Civil War with Hydra. You thought Hydra was dispersed, but what did they do? They just hid
Mm.
in plain sight in politics as governors, as mayors, police captains, and stuff like that.
Right.
Strategic points. So in case something ever did go down, they were in the right positions to execute their will.
Well, and one thing I think it would be interesting if I was a mayor or governor or hell, if I was a president, I would put a question back on the police and say, hey, there's an FBI report saying that a lot of white supremacists are joining the police. How would I know which one of you are white supremacists? Is there a test? How do I know?
The crazy part about that is like you wouldn't. You have some that are kind of obvious, but then you do
I
have some
yes, absolutely. So
that
I
that plays the game so well. They're like a
yes,
sleeper cell, like a Russian
yes,
sleeper. You,
yes.
you would just not know.
Yes, that's the absolute truth of it. You're right, 100%. That's the truth of it. But
Hmm.
it's really about the question, because in that room there's going to be white supremacists, and
Yeah.
in that room there's non-white supremacists, and I'm going to put it on the white people and say, white people, how am I supposed to know you're not the white supremacist? And if they're like, well, I don't say white supremacist stuff, and I always say pro-black stuff, and da, 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 I'm like, well, yeah, but wouldn't that be what a white supremacist would say if they were trying to make sure that no one thought they were white supremacists. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And now they're neurotic. Like, well, how do I not be a white supremacist? I don't know. How do you tell if you're a white supremacist or not? And now, let me ask you, if you're black, how are you supposed to tell if you're a white supremacist or not?
That's true. That's true. That's a good question. But I
Right?
mean,
And
how
so if
would
they
you
can't
tell?
even
How would you
tell
tell?
each other how they definitively are or are not white supremacists, then how the hell is the public supposed to have
Mm-hmm.
any kind of notion that they might be dealing with
Exactly.
sleeper cell shit?
That's true.
You know
That
what I
is
mean?
true.
And so I just want to, I would literally publicly put that question on them. How? Tell me how, literally. Tell me how. In like 3 bullet points. Can you? That's your challenge to me. Chief of police is everywhere. Sheriffs is everywhere. Tell me 3 bullet points or less. How will you flood?
I believe that'd be a question they can't answer.
How
It'd be the
would
same
I
answer
know
across the board. There's
if
no way
you're a
you
white
can tell.
supremacist, white cop? And how do I know if your colleague's a white supremacist, white cops?
Hmm.
Yeah, and they couldn't answer, but I would challenge them, and maybe they could. You know what might emerge? Either the next great leader, or who knows? Maybe some amazing perspective or great
Yeah.
three bullet
Some
points
some
that I can't
discernity
think of.
amongst them.
But great, that would be
Like
great.
not yeah. Everybody looking at each other different, wondering for the
But
questions in their mind now.
yeah, at
For
least
the
that's
ones who
there,
are
and at
not
least
anyway.
because nobody's asking these questions. Nobody's putting these real questions on. The only people really talking about these real things are like comedians. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like you can't even see
That's
on
always.
or Cornell
That's
West
always.
in little 10-minute snippets on CNN. He's gonna talk about this little like massively deep conversation about race or economics or whatever the fuck, and then it's like, oh well, 12 minutes is up and we spent half the time calling you a socialist or whatever. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And yeah, nobody's talking about these things. But we'll see. I get that's why I have the show is so guys
Yeah.
like you, me, and Sophie can be on the show, and people listening. Superfan Chris is on. One other person is on YouTube watching live with us. And by the way,
Okay.
he says that you are correct, Tabari, that Biden will literally roll back the same policies Obama signed, and it goes back and forth each and every time.
Hmm.
And and
I mean, that's what he's gonna do. That's what he's gonna do for those first 4 years in his term. He's gonna do that.
if
He's gonna have ideas. He's gonna have plans, but I don't really believe he's gonna get really anything enacted
do you
the way
think
he's
he
making
has
it seem right
plans of
now.
his own? Like, do you think he really has any real thoughts or plans of what he like policy ideas of his own that he
Not
really
really.
wants
I
to
don't.
push through?
It's all gonna be dependent on his team. I
Yes,
believe
I think it's the
his
team.
team is what's going to matter in his first 4 years. His team is what's going to matter. Because I tell you, his focus to me is rolling back Obama stuff. I think that's what he's going to do. But anything else is going to be his team.
Yeah, I guess we'll
Because I don't really
see.
think he has. I don't really think he has ideas of his own. I think right now he's just a front man. They believe can combat the bulliness of Trump.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're still gonna have. I mean, the stock market's up, but in a few months, we're gonna have the real. I mean, unemployment lines and food lines are already miles long for
It's gonna be
assistance.
worse. Like you said, it's gonna be worse in the upcoming month. The colder months that come up is going to get worse.
Yeah, I mean,
Because you're gonna have people outside not knowing
yes,
what to have. They're not gonna know if it's COVID. They're not gonna know if it's
waiting.
a common cold. They're not gonna know if it's the flu, walking pneumonia. Everybody's gonna think it's COVID. It's gonna be a
And
big mess.
right, exactly. And on top of that, people are going to be crowding together trying to get these benefits because there's going to be so much
Hmm.
unemployment. Unless what's suddenly going to employ all these people? We're literally going to have the depression coming. So
Yeah,
I don't even know
and I
what.
think they're gonna try. And I think they're gonna try to push too soon a bogus vaccine. They're gonna try to force people to take.
Oh yeah, they might. But here's the thing: is we don't have any leadership. Look, last time the depression happened, there was FDR. And FDR
Hmm.
is world renowned as a leader. They wanted to elect him 3 times. I think he get elected 3 times. The only president.
I think he was the only president that
You know
did
what I mean? So hello,
because of what that country was going through.
we had the guy that they elected 3 times that is world renowned as a leader, to some degree a philosopher. Yeah, he did some other stupid shit, right? Here and there. But at the same time, whatever his flaws are, who do we have that is of that caliber now in leadership in our government?
So I know.
Like, who do we have of FDR caliber in our government to that can actually help pull us through this crap? Do you think?
Right now,
I mean,
in
do you
our
think
government,
anybody at all?
no.
That's the thing. So here we have all the conditions of the depression right in front of us, and we have zero leadership. At least during the depression, for as shitty as it was, FDR was president, and whatever, right? And but now we have no leadership like that. So when it all comes tumbling down, we I don't know. We either are going to go down the Hitler road or we're going
Because
to go
we're going to go
down
down the hill because our
something
leadership,
else, you know?
the leadership we have now, are confused. I mean, you see how everything's going on in this country, even with the COVID. No one can get on the same path. They just it's scattered here, there, what people are doing, what we need to do,
Yeah,
and it's
well,
like,
we're a nation of
yeah,
children.
it's all over the place, and there's like no accountability
Yes.
whatsoever at all. It's like such a big mess. I've never seen anything like this before. It's like it be tripping me out when I watch the news. I'd be like, yo, this country is just a big mess. It's like no real leaders right now. It's everybody for themselves basically.
What's going to happen?
I'm hoping,
We're
like you said
entering
before,
third world country.
that new leaders will emerge out of this and get people to take some kind of control, a new party, just a whole new everything. That's what I want to happen. That's what I'm hoping happens.
Yeah,
You know,
well, look,
you never want the opposite. You don't want us to keep sinking and
no.
get worse. God forbid something like Trump wins some kind of way. Another 4 years, like, I mean,
Have you thought
they,
about running for something yourself?
not myself. I've been, you know, with my dad. My dad wants to run for either congressman
Oh,
or something in the
cool.
state senate or something like that.
Yeah,
He's
that'd
been
be
wanting to
cool.
do that. Then my cousin, she wants to run. You know, she's a civil rights activist here in the
Nice.
South. So she wants to run for stuff too. So see how that goes. I mean, she's won a lot of awards and everything, and she's the one like local, statewide fusion awards for her activism and speaking and everything like that. She's real good.
That's really cool. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
and my
So,
dad's always
yeah,
been
I mean,
stuff like that.
it's good to hear because I think that's what it's going to take is us, like regular people, jumping into the fray and kicking out.
It's going to have to be
Yeah.
because the people that's been in power for so long now, they're too old, too seasoned for what's going on now.
Mm.
You need fresh blood. You need a new outlook. You need new perspective because the world is different now. It's not what it used to be. And to me, these old laws, these old rules, they try to hold on to the old and
Right.
not embrace the new. They try to hold on to the sins rather than take accountability for the sins and try to hold on to those objects that glorify and still bring up memories of those sins.
Yeah. But I think, we see that through history, even during abolition of chattel slavery, there was people fighting again, to keep it around.
Hmm.
And it took a long time for people to get enough support to fight to end it, and the right leaders had to emerge.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of pain and suffering occurred first. So I just hope that we don't have to go through a major period of pain and suffering first. It's too hard to tell, though. I mean, I don't. The depression
So that's the
traumatized
part. That's
whole
the part that I
generations of
wonder,
people.
and that's the one that I'm worried about, and it scares me because you know how that saying, it always gets darker before it gets better. A lot of people always say that, so you kind of wonder, will it be the same instance here?
Oh
Will it get
God,
even darker before? Will the country get rock bottom before we
what
actually
does
make a
that even
turnaround
look
and get
like? I
better?
don't even know what that means. And then if we do hit rock bottom, who's to say China and Russia don't tag team on us?
Exactly. Exactly.
And the rest of the world, the
I
rest of the
mean,
world don't even like
you
us.
like that's why I've been trying to tell people with everything going on, they don't notice what's really happening in the rest of the world with our relations with these other countries. Like a lot of our relations with European countries that we've always been like friends and allies with, they're going to a lot of stuff with China now, making pacts with China,
Yes.
like after the United States, because
Yes.
of what the United States is doing under Trump.
Yes.
So it's going to get to a point where like we're going to be so isolated. Basically, it don't need a tag team because they got what they wanted.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean about tag team is that either through sanctions or possibly military action or like we talked about rebellion and different things. What if there is a rebel army or rebel force movement that starts emerging? Who's to say China's not going to send guns to them or Russia's
Like a
not going
little,
to send guns?
like a paramilitary group.
Yeah, to help arm. I mean, we do it to
Mm-hmm.
everyone else. Who's to say that
That is true.
everyone
That's
else
true.
isn't going to start shipping bazookas and different arms to our rebel groups in America to overthrow the government
That's
or
true.
seize
That
military
is true.
assets and blah blah. You know what I mean? I mean, once it gets
That's
to
true.
that point, if a movement emerges, that's all that needs to happen.
That's true. Yeah, people get pushed to that point, like they're getting to that, like they get like it's starting right now,
We already
getting
have a
pushed to that
suicide
point.
epidemic.
Mhm.
People are already killing themselves. They might as well go and fight for something. People will
Yep.
see that. All you got to do is articulate the fight. If you create the
Yep.
fight, the team, you just have to say, "Join me." That's why Al Qaeda and all them have recruiting videos and shit. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It's like that. That's why the
Yep.
Army, U.S. Army, and Air Force, and every other armed forces has recruiting videos and shit. FYI, and fucking Super Bowl ads and shit. So it's all the
Yep.
same kind of deal. Join our fighting force. I'm not saying they're Al
Yep.
Qaeda. I'm just saying, hey, they use the same fucking techniques. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Lure
Yeah, that's
people
true.
that are either mad or I don't know, poor and they need help, and hey, Al Qaeda got a bed for you. Al Qaeda feed you. Al Qaeda will
Yep.
take. You got brothers here. We got you. You ain't heavy, man. You know
They
what? Al
they
Qaeda don't
they
sound
they
so bad anymore. And we also
yeah,
join our
that
sister
type of
group,
recruitment
ISIS.
is designed for that particular type of person.
Yeah,
They
and
know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly who they're drawing in.
okay, yes, and the military recruiters are exact same way.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I'm saying?
They sell you that
Yes,
dream. They sell you that idea.
there you
Then
go.
you sign that paper. Then you see that idea was
Look,
not what you expected.
all I'm saying though is give people that idea, that vision. Someone organize it, someone get it. The clandestine operations are happening. You're fighting for something you bigger than you. You now are able to
Hmm.
lay your life with direction. What do I do? Well, do this. This is our mission. Blah blah blah. I bet people would be all. I mean, there would be a giant rebel army, but
Yeah.
you better not create that rebel army because the American
You have such a
government
large
will.
population of you have such a large population of people who are like that, who are lost souls. So
Yeah, I'm telling you.
that type of recruiting, that's the person it was designed for. They get them some better,
But
some higher
dude,
purpose. Yeah.
yes. But check this out. Yeah, well, okay. I guess there's in some way you're saying yes. In fact, James, if you were to start a rebellion, let's say you had this weird dream of becoming the Che Guevara Part 2. Now's the time to do it because there's
Exactly.
a lot of lost souls, and if you articulate a message just right,
Yeah.
you could have
Right
people
now, there are a
who
lot of lost souls right
they don't
now.
have anything to live.
You could probably form your own little rebel group real quickly.
These people, the people don't have anything to live for, and they will find something to
Mhm.
die for. They'll do
You
it.
gotta think about it. Even before this whole pandemic and everything, just look at people in general who go to any kind of church, any type of thing.
Sure.
You have so many people who are lost, who look for answers, and look for a higher purpose. So they'll go to a church down the road that doesn't talk about anything godly or anything like that, but they'll believe in that person. They'll forgive that person for whatever they do because they gave them purpose.
Mm. You know,
People are just like that. And with this
yeah.
pandemic, it just made people who are like that even worse. Plus, it generated a whole new population of people like that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, things were already bad before the pandemic
Mhm.
anyway. And now with the pandemic, it's just everything's on 10, you know.
Exactly.
And I think I don't know, it's of course the government is afraid of that example, the threat of a good example. If somebody were to create a movement that actually was committing civil disobedience or committing some level of violence, especially if it was up to and including deadly violence, targeted deadly violence. There's a couple things that I wonder. I wonder, number one, if by all means necessary would that not be televised and not be released on any major platforms, etc., and deleted immediately as it floats around. And number two, so that, well, going back to number one, so that could be happening right now, we wouldn't even know it. And then number two, I wonder if it were to happen, would other cells develop as they see that example, someone did a heinous act, some Project Mayhem type shit, and now do you think some other people will start replicating that because like they're like, hell yeah, that's exactly what needs to happen, they start doing their own thing like that? And do you think
They're
that
always
once it
they're
happens
always
it'll
going to be
cascade?
copycats. They're always going to be copycats. So I do believe there will be replicates of it.
What do you think stopping people from escalating to doing more targeted, strategic?
Fear, fear.
Is it fear? Yeah.
I think it's fear. I think with the president we have, just that fear. I believe they know, and with some of the people who were still in power, like the all right, yeah, it's fear, because they looking for an excuse to justify violent reaction. I think.
Do you think there'll be a time where I hate saying the word the left, but do you think like the non-Trump, the not not those people, the ones that are looking for the excuse, etc., those people, do you think that the non-Trump people will ever come to the aid though of some of these people? Like for instance, like what you were talking about, someone not being more overt or not doing some of these more overt examples of disobedience because they're afraid of Trump and his supporters and that apparatus. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
do, because I believe there are a lot of people who are not for Trump. I do believe there's a lot of people who are not for Trump in the Republican Party.
sure,
I believe
yeah.
there's a lot, but for some reason, I'm not, and this is one that kind of boggles me because I don't understand why. Because it seems like the more you support and not say anything, you kind of hurting yourself and your party. But they just, for some reason, going down with the ship. I mean, they're not for Trump, but I don't think they're gonna speak
Well,
out.
yeah,
They're the same ones who are not for Trump, the same ones who sit at
they're
home, but they
not gonna
don't vote
shake the
either.
partisan line. Probably,
Yeah,
it's about
they're
being
just gonna be
a
neutral. They're just
party
gonna stay
member.
where they are. They're just gonna stay where they are. It would take a real leader, someone I think fresh and new, that would actually get them probably moving and getting them to ally themselves with others like that. But right now, people like that are just waiting.
Well, yeah, but if let's say they're waiting, but let's say I don't know, I don't want to say something out loud and then someone goes and does it and then they blame it on me. But let's like hypothetically in this novel that I read, let's say there's a couple guys go and I don't know, they kill the transformer for the local police station and raid it or something like that, or you know what I mean. And so there's no electricity, and they messed up the generator, so the whole thing's blacked out, and they start taking out police or something like that, and it's a message from this movement. Something like that. If something like that were to happen, do you think the people that are waiting around sort of for something, do you think they would be like, holy shit, okay, I know what I'm doing next weekend.
I don't know. I don't know.
Or like I don't.
I
What if?
don't know because it seems like the reason why we lack leadership now, it seems like everybody's too scared to act. So something like that, you would think it would push them to be like, okay, act, but I really don't think so.
Yeah, what about if it was something like I don't know. Like I said, it's not. I'm not trying to tell someone to do this. It was in a novel that I read. What if someone just starts like a band of snipers and hackers get together, the dream team get together and start offing all these like CEOs and people who are rumored to be the marionettes of the puppets, holding the strings. And
Uh,
I'm not going to say who is or isn't doing that. I mean, everyone's got their ideas of who's, the right wing and the left wing all have their person who's the bad guy that's funding all this stuff. But what if they just start getting disappeared by this movement? Would that spark something? Would that change something? Would that make a fear in those, like you said, in those organizations to make a change? Do you think?
something that drastic, I would think so. Yeah,
You would think so, but
yeah, with
so
something like that
why hasn't it
because
happened yet? You think?
something like that because I believe if something like that went down, the first instance, it will be shut down.
Well, of course. I mean, it's going to be a
Yeah.
forensics files, or manhunt extraordinaire,
hmm
of course. But I
But
mean,
at the same time, it would wake those up.
well, sure. But at the same time, again, if you have people on suicide epidemic, especially vets, veterans are on suicide watch constantly because they go through so much, and you have, I mean, who knows? There's some benevolent hacker who sees how shitty the world is. They've existed before. It's just a matter of getting them both to get into the same room and
hmm
strategize and say, okay, hey, here's this information, and the sniper can do this with
See,
it.
something like that, I could see the change coming and them acting out because, like you said, that perfect combo, you're basically eliminating everyone that was actually causing harm. So you're actually leaving that space open for true leaders to be put in place, and it's going to be true leaders to be put in place because who would? Because if it's not, I mean, the combo would take them out too, wouldn't it?
Well, but that's the thing is like, how do you stop the counter? Like, how do you stop the government snipers from constantly? I mean, I don't know. You can't protect everybody all the time. That's what
Yeah,
Fight
yeah,
Club
you
tells
can.
us with Project
Yeah,
Mayhem. So I guess their life will, yeah, they have to change because they're otherwise. If there's got to be a movement and a leader and a way for basically life to turn into hell for those people somehow.
exactly.
But we don't have the culture for that yet. We just don't.
Uh-uh,
I mean,
at
we
all.
people will work for them and,
We are
and
we are
do
we are long
whatever.
we are long ways from that. We are long ways from
Yeah,
that culture.
they'll justify it
It's
because I gotta
people.
feed
Yeah.
my kids, so I work for so and so, and yeah,
This country is just. That's why I believe like people like you said not for Trump want to act because this country is people in general are just so selfish.
well,
It's
yeah,
just
there's a
so
culture
many
of it.
individuals are about themselves. Like I seen it many times. You have some that will speak about this and speak about this and speak about that, but at the same time, they don't practice anything they preach. They go back doing the complete opposite.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this. I don't know. This country is. It's like that's why I be saying I mean, is that the American way? Just selfish, make money how you can. Who gives a fuck who you run over in the process? It's just
I
you
mean,
keep it moving.
that's just sociopathic. That's you can't run a
hmm
society that way. But you're right. That's how we're running it, and that's the
That's what has to
culture.
change.
And you know,
That's what
I,
has to change.
yeah. Well, I speak a lot about a spiritual reckoning, a spiritual, and you know, it's so funny. Cornell West might have been saying this forever, but I started saying it. Completely convergent evolution, if it's the case. We thought of it at not at the same time. I'm sure he thought of it a long time ago. But I've been talking for years now that we're gonna face a reckoning in this country to determine what is our culture. Is our mantra "fuck you, pay me" or "you're my brother, you ain't heavy"? Which one? Because it can't be both.
I know, right? I know, right?
They can't be both.
That's true.
And so,
It can't do.
and when I say there's a spiritual reckoning afoot that's coming, you know, and I guarantee if I sat with Dr. Cornell West right now, he would 100% be like, Brother James, you're 100% right. There is absolutely a spiritual awakening that's gonna come. It's coming. Right? He would say the same. And when I say spiritual, I don't mean like angels and demons and God or Allah or something. I mean that exact point that we're talking about. Is our motto "fuck you, pay me," or "you ain't heavy, you're my brother"? Which one is it? And I think maybe by saying that enough times, there's gonna be "fuck you, pay me" camp, and then "you're my brother" camp, and
Hmm.
then there's going to be a civil war. You
Yeah.
know, I'm a brother and I'm a fuck you. You know, it's like, all right, well,
Yeah.
fuck you. And then we
Yeah.
just start fighting. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? I think that, but I think if we are going to come up with like what will the next American Civil War be fought on is that philosophical ground. Is it "fuck you, pay me" or "you ain't heavy, you're my brother"?
Yeah.
You know, but we'll see. I guess that, and like I said, that's where we have to think about what is it. What is it really? Because right now it's "fuck you, pay me." I think it's
Yeah.
evidenced in many places.
That's exactly what it is right now. That's basically exactly what you're saying. Fuck you, baby.
Yeah,
It's crazy because you see it everywhere, and
everywhere.
it starts with the highest seat in this country, the presidency.
Yes.
His whole motto is basically that fuck you, pay me.
But do you think, let's say for instance, okay, let's just pretend in fantasy world, I raise my hand maybe in 4 years from now to go run for president, and
Uh-huh.
I'm giving a stump speech, and I say, we are at a spiritual reckoning. We have a question. Is our motto "fuck you, pay me," or is it, "you're my brother, you ain't heavy," or "you ain't heavy, you're my brother"? I don't remember which one. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. Yeah, you ain't heavy,
Yeah.
you're my brother. So, um, do you think how would people respond to that kind of direct questioning? And do you think that would cause people to think, what is it? What do I teach my children, and who do I want to be? Do you think that would actually happen, or
I do. It would make people look differently because they'd be confronted with the question. Because you have to think, if you approach someone with a question that direct, like like which is it? Is it "fuck you, pay me," or "you have you my brother's keeper"? They're going to pick my brother's keeper because to be "fuck you, pay me," to say it out loud, they see the nature of it, like the selfishness of of it as a whole. So like, no one's going to admit to anybody that they're this way. So they're gonna hide behind the front and be that front and become that just to
well, sure, they
save
can
face.
they can hide that front, but what if you also ask them, what has Trump shown you through his life and through his presidency? Which one of those two is evidenced in his behavior, in his words, in his philosophies? You know,
They won't have nothing to say. They won't have nothing to say. But
yeah.
make America,
So
they're supporting "Make America Great Again." Because when any Trump supporter, when they ask them questions, what's their response? They never really say anything.
they
And I
really
sit there,
don't. Yeah.
I'd be like, damn, do you know anything Trump has done? Anything? No, they just say a bunch of bullshit and they say "Make America Great Again." That's it.
Right.
That's a normal response from one of his supporters.
Well, and
They don't know nothing.
I almost wonder if there's the Trump supporter cult, and then there's also like the Republican/conservative, whatever, that still are fuck you pay me because they're Ayn Rand people.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because the first one you said Trump runs that, and the second one Pence does,
yes, yes. So
and it's just united together.
there you go. So yeah, yeah. I guess it's just. I mean, so there. That's there. I mean, I guess there's a chance that that could be somehow the dividing line, possibly. But I wonder though if people could really change or really think about it and change the way they act in their life. You
It's
know.
possible. I believe it's possible, but I do believe, and it's bad to say, this country would have to be at a very low point first. It would have, like I said, the dark. You get to the dark before you get to the light.
Man,
We would have to go through that
but
first
I wonder
to
how bad
find that
that's
to
gonna
find that
get.
within us, to find that new leadership to emerge from that fire. We would have to go through the darkness first.
What is gonna what is that
I don't.
forge gonna
Yeah,
look like, man? I don't know. What is that darkness
yeah.
gonna look like?
That right there, I can't even answer you what it's going to look like. But I do feel like we will have to go through that darkness first. And I feel that we're in that path. We're going towards that direction.
Oh God, and we haven't even entered the cave.
Hmm.
Oh
We're
man,
still miles from the cave. Yeah,
we can see it.
we're still on the track. We can see the cave, but we're not quite there yet.
Ugh.
But it's coming.
It's coming. It is coming. Well, on that note, I think I'm gonna go ahead and call this one a day on this
All right.
on tonight's show. Oh shit, that's way too low. But I appreciate it, Tabari. Next week,
All right.
man, it's gonna be, I'm gonna ring-a-ling this line, and if you want to jump on,
All
if you
right.
think of a topic you want to talk about, or if there's something on your mind, or a movement, or something you want to champion, let me know, and then we can do this tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow,
Okay.
next week, or whenever you want, and we could talk about that topic. You know what I mean? So think about,
That sounds good.
yeah, think about something, and then if you're available or if you want to plan it, we can jump on. And those of you, there's looks like we still have one person on watching live on YouTube. Um, you can tune in, tell your friends, subscribe, like it, all that stuff, so we can get build the audience, get more opinions in, and hash through this. We are brothers and sisters in this country, and we need each other to help guide us through the
Exactly. Exactly.
bullshit. Because as Oshan said, he said something great, man. Is just life is great. It just keeps getting interrupted by bullshit. And
Exactly.
it might have been
Those are
someone else
true
who
words.
said that,
True
but
words.
but he said, yeah, but it's interrupted by bullshit. Life interrupted by bullshit,
Hmm.
and so we are trying to get through that bullshit together. And I appreciate
Yes.
you, Tabar, jumping on and helping the world wade through that shit. And yeah, man, let's do this again.
Okay. All right, James.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later. Peace.
All right, take it easy. All right.
All right. So, one episode down. Next week, we are going to come in. If you got a topic, put it in the comments. I do check the comments. And so, please go ahead and do that. Meanwhile, we have Seprock Beats. Hopefully, it doesn't come in super loud. It wasn't supposed to, but it does anyway. So, here we go. Peace out, y'all.